Hi everyone, hope you guys are all having a great day today. In today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of the Fed meeting, economic calendar, cover analysis based off the QQQ slash Nasdaq ETF, SPY, S&P 500 ETF, and the Dow Jones as well. Hopefully you guys like the video. Hopefully you guy enjoy it. If you do, consider dropping a like. It does help the channel, so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. First, I'm going to go over the Fed meeting. So in terms of what they stated, they're holding interest rates consistent, basically not increasing or decreasing it. And at the same time, the consensus is from what they're stating is that essentially they don't know when they will reduce rates. They said either increase or reduce rates. Basically, they don't know if they're going to reduce or increase until further data comes along and then they see a reason to reduce rates or increase rates, so on and so forth. But from what Jerome Powell stated, he said in his opinion, basically, or his belief, is the next movement in terms of not decision making but movement, whether it be up or down, is more likely to be a decrease rather than an increase for the change of interest rate. That's one thing to note. He was getting pressed quite a bit, stating that, okay, what conditions would make it to a point that the Fed would want to increase interest rates, or is there talks about potentially something on the table about interest rates being increased, but nothing. He basically deflected everything essentially and just kept it neutral, saying we still we want to get to our 2% target, and at the same time we have to assess things as the data comes in along and all that stuff, right? So that's for that. Now for the economic calendar, we have, before I actually get to the economic calendar, we do also have Apple's earnings tomorrow coming out after the trading bell. Now that is close to a $3 trillion company. I think it's $2.6 trillion. So if it does jump quite a bit, that will bring the market to the upside for the following day. Or if it comes down quite a bit, it will bring down the market quite a bit the next following day. But the thing is though, on Friday as well, so we have Thursday economic calendar stuff, but for Friday we have U.S. employment report and U.S. unemployment report as well. That could kind of play a role for Friday as well, even after in terms of Apple's earnings, just because the Fed said that they're looking at additional data as always, right? So for example, on Thursday, May 2nd, which is tomorrow, at 8:30 a.m., we have initial jobless claims. So that is one thing that they look at too as well. And then at 8:30 a.m., U.S. trade deficit. As well, at 8:30 a.m., we have U.S. productivity. And 8:30 a.m. as well, U.S. unit labor costs. And then at 10 a.m., we have factory orders. So that's all for tomorrow's economic calendar in terms of important stuff. And then we have the U.S. 10-year Treasury at 4.64%. And then crude oil at $79.06 per barrel. So it has been decreasing. Now, in terms of analysis portion, like I'm going to go over the QQQ, which is the ETF for Nasdaq. And just a quick thing, like always, for the new viewers, we've been in a channel hypothetically since 2010 right here. Upward trend resistance line, upward trend support level. Broke through since 2020 to 2022, but then got underneath it and stuck again and just arched down. I kind of wish I was shorting it at this point because you never know. That's why I didn't really do it specifically. But you live and you learn, I guess, right? So 5-year chart is showing to the downside. MACD line showing more bearish movement to the downside. The 1-year chart just pretty much arching back down. There's a level I want to show. I think we're pretty much going to end up going to anyway. And then in terms of short term, it looks like for the short term, it's trying to arch up. I believe all three, 6 month, 3 month, 3 month, 1 month, either they're in the bullish territory or arching up to the bullish territory or still stay in the bullish territory. But in my opinion, I think what's going to happen is for Thursday and Friday, pretty much either inch up to the upside or consolidate for the most part between the levels of $418 to $430, maybe if we're lucky to $433, $432. But essentially between that level, unless again, Apple's earnings is really good, brings up the whole entire market with it. Because then hypothetically, if Apple goes up, somewhat the tech sector goes up in general. And given Nasdaq is mainly the tech sector, this could start going up to the higher levels. Now I'll give the lower levels and the higher levels too as well. But I think we're going to come back down again to pretty much this level. So we've seen touch points around this point right here, resistance level around this touch point, and there's a little bit of a nudge right here. And that's about $413, $414, right? And then what happens on the upside, so that's the downside. But ultimately, before I get to the upside fully, if we were to head down, so pretty much consolidate again between 418 to 430, give or take, because the 430, there's a good amount of resistance there. We've seen it before, 430 and some change. And then to the downside, there is support at like the 425 and then the 420, 421, 425, 421 to 420. Again, we close at 421.52 cents. After hours is 423.08 cents. But if we were to head lower, we could see consolidation, not consolidation, but support around the 416 to 418, and then from there drop down to pretty much 413, 414, right about this level. I do think we would bounce up to the upside, but until then, we'll see from there, and I'll assess it based off the MACD line movements, so on and so forth, and price actions. But for the time being, those are the levels I'm seeing, but I do not think that's going to happen until potentially Monday. We'll see test 414, 413, but it could always happen sooner. It could probably happen by the Friday based off the Apple earnings and then the numbers we see, jobless claims and all that stuff. But if we were to head the upside with this upward trend, support / resistance level, we've seen it touch points, resistance here, support, support, and then resistance here. So it is a line that does happen. Plus we had this downward trend resistance line that acted as resistance a couple times, and then we had a false breakout for QQQ / Nasdaq. But for the SPY / S&P500, it had tests but never had a false breakout on the SPY. But either way, so if we head up to the upside, again, we have resistance at the 430. We've seen it multiple times right about here. Actually, no, the 430 is right about here. So touch points right about here if you hold it around the 430 price point. And then the next level is about 432, 433, 434, which is a bunch of clusters right here, clusters here. And then after 433, 434, we hit this upward trend resistance line, which is pretty much around the 438, 439 price point. And then if you're optimistic and you think we're just going to keep going up, this is a little bit further down the line later on. I don't think it will happen specifically, let's say tomorrow or by Friday. But if it does, you break through those levels, the next level, I'm pretty sure it will knock us down, to be honest. But this is just my opinion, by the way. Like always, I'm not a professional, so please do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. But there's this downward trend resistance line, like I said, multiple tests, and I think we would get knocked down pretty much around where we intersect. It shows 441, 442 level, but I think we'd probably go up past that level to like somewhere where the resistance level is more like at 43, 44. So ultimately, somewhere between $441 to $444 price point, because we probably might have another false breakout once again. So that's probably what's going to happen most likely. The thing is, though, at the same time, the volatility index is quite low. We're at 15 right now, 15.38, and we probably have some. We're probably going to go lower potentially for the volatility index, but we'll see. Now for the SPY / S&P500 ETF, same thing shows for the 5-year chart for the new viewers. Since 2010, upward trend resistance line. Now did not break through. Might have had a small false breakout, but I'm not sure unless I zoom in. And then upward trend support level right here, and then a major upward trend support level for the major crashes. But I don't anticipate any major crashes, especially during an election year personally, but anything's possible, right? Now, if you go to the 5-year chart, it's showing bearish movement further downside. 1-year chart started just going back down, further downside, and then the 6-month and the 3-month and the 1 month all showing the same thing as QQQ, which is essentially either curving to the bullish side, being in the bullish territory, or staying in the bullish territory. Now, in terms of the downward trend resistance line right about here, like I stated earlier, for QQQ, we had a false breakout, but for SPY, we do not have the false breakout. So that will cap us, in my opinion. But for the meantime, within these levels right about here, I think ultimately, if we were to head down, just like the SPY, QQQ, to which was about $413, $414, we would head down to this level, same, meaning up at the $493 price point. Currently, we're at $535, and then after hours is at $501.68 Essentially, we'd be going down to, like I said, $493, give or take, and I think bouncing back up and seeing what happens from there. But for the time being, in terms of consolidating price points, we could be consolidating pretty much around the 498. It's 499, but it's 498. I've seen a bunch of times touch it. It's 498 to essentially $508. We tried to test the 510 and some change, but essentially from the past, in terms of resistance levels, haven't really hit past 510, getting to the 511. So essentially consolidating around that price point. If not, going lower to the 495 and ultimately the 493 after that in terms of support levels. Now to the high side, again, the 510 is going to be hard to pass. Not clean 510, 510 and some change. And then this downward trend resistance line, earlier there was resistance at the 511 and the high end of 511. But coincidentally now we got to a point that we haven't hit this downward trend resistance line and broke through. So it actually meets around the high 511 price point as well. I guess it's showing right now 512, so I must have misread it earlier. But it's essentially around 511 to 512 price point, and then potentially getting knocked down. Again, unless if momentum picks up like crazy, some good news comes out, all stuff, but I don't anticipate anything coming out recently, except for, again, if earnings is crazy for Apple, it is a big heavy hitter, so that could move the markets to the upside. How much, we'll see. If it becomes a catalyst somehow to move the other stocks too, in terms of optimism, that's possible, but we'll see. Now, in terms of Dow Jones, we're looking at pretty much further downside actually for the Dow Jones. So for the Dow Jones, we have within these channels, upward trend resistance line got knocked down a bunch of times, 3 times right about here, and then upward trend support level right about here, multiple times bounced off it as well, and then we're potentially coming back down to it. In my opinion, we're at 37,903 points, and then the 1-year chart showing further downside, crossing back into the bearish territory. 6-month chart, this one's different than the SPY, S&P 500 and Nasdaq, because it just shows straight downside. 3 months right here, crossing back to the bearish movement, even though it's still almost somewhat in the bullish movement, but it's pretty much crossing over for the most part. And then the 1-month chart, it's arching down to the downside. Now it is in the bullish movement, and that could change to go back up fully before coming to the bearish movement, but it's just showing further downside. So the level that we're looking at, pretty much, if we were first, the level to go down to is about 37,711 points, give or take, right? They're just ballpark estimate range. And then ultimately, I think we'd be heading down to the 37,450 and then bouncing back up. Again, these are just estimates, but right now we're at 37,903 points. And those levels, again, are about 37,700-ish points, and then 37,450-ish points, give or take. But yeah, let me just make sure I got that right. Yeah, I would say low 37,700 for the first level, low side, and then the 37,450, give or take. But yeah, hopefully you guys like the video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. That's it for today's video. If you do want to be notified the next time I do upload my next video, because I try to upload these daily, consider following so be notified when I do upload the next one. And then drop a like if you found this video beneficial. Thanks again. Appreciate it. It does help the channel. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace.